Nolan, Burton, Reeves, they've all brought Batman to the big screen, but for my money, the best Batman movie is Mask of the Phantasm. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the adaptation to Mask of the Phantasm, the comic book. Here we go. My name is Bernie Gonzalez. I am a comic book writer and artist, and in these videos I just like to go over some of the comics that have influenced me in my work, in my writing, in my artwork, in my stories. And if you're a fan of Batman, if you're a fan of Batman the Animated Series, Mask of the Phantasm, arguably one of the best Batman movies at least by my book. Animated, live action, doesn't matter. Batman Mask of the Phantasm, amazing. And we're going to go over this one shot that is a comic book adaptation of Batman Mask of the Phantasm. So the comic was released in January 1994. The movie was released December 1993, so just a month before, and actually really probably just a few weeks before, because the movie was released on Christmas Day, December 1993. So adaptation doesn't follow much later. The movie, if you read anything about it out there on Wikipedia online, you'll see that the movie did not do very well in the box office. It was made between seasons 1 and 2. It was inspired by Batman Year 2, which was released in 1987. It's the Reaper instead of the Phantasm that we see in Phantasm. But nonetheless, when the movie was released on VHS, in the clamshell, there was a small mini comic that was this. And I just remember seeing this at the time, but then also seeing this mini adaptation of it was really neat, because the book was about yay high, but had all of this artwork here. And I'm not going to go over this one because, well, the glare will kill some of it. The paper quality is very glossy, but I just wanted to show this one because I always remember from the VHS, the smaller version with this amazing Bruce Timm painted design. I don't know, it's on canvas, great texture here. I always loved this one, but same thing. This is the same adaptation, just on newsprint, a little less glossy. So I'm going to go over that one. All right, so Mask of the Phantasm. All right, like I said, released Christmas 1993. It was then direct video. The original was released on VHS, and then it was between after production of season 1, Batman, Joker, Phantasm. But we're looking at Kelly Puckett, who does the writing, Mike Pirobeck, who unfortunately died at a very early age. He's worked on a number of different comics, Impact Comics. I might have to go over some of those because I have a good collection of those, namely like The Fly and the Comet Black Hood, but he worked on some of those as well. And inked by Rick Burkett. There's a lot of artists that have worked on these Batman animated series style books, Batman Adventures, Gotham Adventures, and they all kind of take a bit from what Bruce Timm and the team established in Batman the Animated Series for the show, and then just brought in a little bit of themselves, but with a lot of those Bruce Timm stylings. We get artists like Tim Levins, Ty Templeton, obviously Mike Pirobeck, Rich Burchett, who himself not only inked but has drawn it. Christopher Jones is another artist I can think of, but I wanted to go over this because, again, if you've seen the movie, it's kind of interesting to see how it's adapted, what's shortened, what's completely avoided, what's brought in, what do they focus on. You know, starting off with that first page, you can just see, like in the movie, once you get past that amazing score, we're just setting up the fact that this is Gotham, and just really great rendering here. I love the color choices, the fact that the yellow just really pops in the night sky. You know, you could almost go even almost like a dark silhouette on some of these and get rid of some of this red and just really make it pop. Surprised they didn't go with the red that you would see in all the skies in the TV show, in the animated series. But again, the comics were inspired by the series, but we're also doing a little bit of their own thing. So, but still, just great design work here. You don't necessarily get the same sort of slow reveals, the skulking, the really like looming Batman shots like you would get in the movie. They have to do a lot more with a lot less time and a lot less pages. You do get a few of the shots. I always love this bridge from the animated series, from the movie. The way they rendered that just has this really interesting art choice. Really neat. Reminds me a bit of the Art Deco designs that they featured in the '89 Burton movie. And then here you get the whole, you could almost hear it. Chucky soul, your angel of death awaits. But quicker reveal, because they don't have a lot of pages, so they got to get through it. We don't get the cool car scene in the car garage like we do in the movie, but we do get the dramatic Phantasm. We do get similar shot here. You could almost see that shot from the movie where they almost focus in on his eyes. Interesting how they did the smoke. It's kind of, I don't know, almost like a charcoal kind of feel. It'd be interesting to see what some of these originals look like, because there's, look at the rendering. They made a lot of simple, clean choices. There's not a lot of that 90s Image Comics extreme style coloring. There's a lot of flats. There's some great highlights, effective highlights. And then when you get into some of these special effects, there's not a lot of color holds, but then this kind of stands out. But it totally works. Almost looks like it could be really good for like a sandstorm type of design. Then I like this. It's kind of cool just how they incorporated the FX into the car smashing through. Again, using that shot again, that kind of charcoal, kind of neat. Love that. Just everything they did in designing Batman, very economical, but it's kind of an interesting way of doing the nose, just rendering it in black there. Kind of talky pages, not much going on here, but very similar to the scene from the movie, if you remember that. I do also like when artists are confident enough to not have to do a lot of rendering, and in this case, they did a great job in Alfred's jacket, where it's completely black, but more specifically in this panel down here, where maybe another artist who wasn't as confident might have felt the need to render some shadows on the sides, but it's not necessary. Your mind can kind of fill in everything that's going on here. You can see what's happening, and you know that Alfred is just standing there in the shadows. Completely works. Again, some of that kind of charcoal rendering. I have to imagine the originals must have some of that, or like a really dry ink pen where you get your ink pen to just essentially just dry so that it's a bit rough and it kind of gives you that cool texture. Mimicking some of the same scenes from the movie. Bruce visiting the tombstone. We get the first shots of Andrea Beaumont and the witty back and forth. The hair is just a great choice. I mean, it's very bold and it pops. Totally works. And you just get this dichotomy between the evening and then the day. Even if we are in a cemetery, the scene doesn't feel gloomy. It doesn't feel heavy. There's this kind of rat-a-tat back between Andrea and Bruce. So it works. Although you still get Bruce doing the Batman eyes there. All right, then we've got Bruce pre-Batman outfit doing his early vigilantism. This whole scene is just great in the movie. They did a pretty good job in this one. On your arms, on your stomachs, arms spread. When I hear Batman speak, I think of Kevin Conroy, so it just takes me back to that scene in the movie. A lot of movement, a lot of things here, but the colors are not distracting. Everything, you can tell who everyone is. Guy with the red cap, got it. But Batman in the kind of like dark teal blue there. So we can see who everyone is. So when we get to a page like this, it may seem a little busy, but it's not, because you can tell everything that's going on. We're seeing Batman moving these guys around. It's kind of interesting, though, that they took 2 pages to demonstrate all of this. I mean, I get the kind of like celebratory mode here where he's like, yeah, everything he's been training for, everything Bruce Wayne has been doing is paying off. Maybe this vigilante thing could work for a book that only has, probably, let's take a look here, 60-some pages. 2 pages to just show this fight scene is a lot of real estate, but great dynamism, great movement. Then we cut to Bruce having Alfred read about his nightly exploits. Great acting here, and using a little bit of his martial arts to subdue Andrea Beaumont and make his move. Love this shot. This is a great panel. Just the color choices are great, and while we can tell, it's barely tell, honestly, that it's in a cemetery, but you know, it's moody, that's for sure, and very different from what we just saw on the previous page with some of these much more vibrant colors. Again, mimicking some of the same shots, except this time a little bit more. If the movie was already G-rated, this, you know, you don't get any of the shadow of the falling cemetery tombstone thing there. Even this whole shot, very quick. This is kind of like one of those quick little scenes to set everything up in the movie. This, now it's literally just a panel, and even then it's like an insert within an establishing panel. Got Andrea visiting her parents. Meanwhile, she sees that Batman is also there, seeming to talk to a tombstone. She connects the two, realizes he's talking to a tombstone that says Wayne. She deduces maybe, you know, that's Bruce. So she's also a pretty good detective in her own right. This shot right here, if you know the movie, you know that shot. It's that painted panel. You can almost hear the music, you know, dun, 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 to the future. You know, just again, the movie's so good, and they did a good job here. This is interesting panel work, especially with the little rounded. I'm not sure what that's supposed to be. It's an interesting choice, I'll say that. You know, they get a lot of that Metropolis type design, Fritz Lang feel in there. You know, World's Fair in the future, you know, addressing the future as they see it at the time. Interesting choices. Not very dynamic angles, but totally works. Interesting again, we get back to those rounded borders. Kind of weird. Get the first shot of the Batmobile, and you get the sense that Bruce Wayne has seen kind of like what could be the prototype to the Batmobile. The scene here, and this is where you get some old comics where you get some bleed on one page to the other. That's okay. You get the shot of Bruce defending Andrea from these bikers. The shot it's hard to replicate that sort of action from the movie where he does the kick while the guy's coming at him with the music. You know, it's hard to replicate that, but they did a pretty good job actually. You know, getting hit in the stomach when he turns away and looks at Andrea, who's just like come back and, you know, basically stop fighting, and he has to kind of reevaluate, you know, what he's doing, and the fact that he's doing this in front of Andrea. Maybe this isn't the time. You can almost hear Kevin Conroy, I just don't know. I don't know. And just slams the wall. Just great design. But here we do get the red sky, and that's why that yellow moon just pops. You know, this is interesting because this was done in the coloring phase where they added I think those are window mullions, but the shadows on his face, I don't know, I would have definitely just done some ink slinging and put that on his face to really show how dramatic and moody it could be with the shadows, but that's okay. Famous scene from the cartoon, from the movie, where he's just like, I know I made a promise, please tell me it's okay. Bruce is bearing his soul in front of his parents. Andrea comes in, consoles him. Love the color choices here, just everything from the skin tones, the little orange, the purple there, sorry. Good gestures. This guy's incredibly dramatic, and just like you see his faces compared to everyone else, everything is very stylistic, but, you know, just the gesturing, the acting there on 11. Meanwhile, Batman's in the cave here. Obviously, we see maybe some nods to Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams, you know, doing a few nods to famous Batman contributors and creators. Again, a profile. Love that. The choices that Parobic made here. Didn't have to show the whole mouth. Just completely works. And I love how he did the shadow here on this one. In that other previous one, it was just the nose. That totally works. You could have gone so far as to just make the whole thing black, but either way, incredibly effective. All right, shot of Bruce proposing to Andrea. This is always interesting to me because when you get something as stylized as this Batman animated series design, when you draw animals, it has to also work within that. So when you see horses in like the Ra's al Ghul episodes, it's got to work in that style. So the bats, good job by Parobic, and just keeping it simple enough where, you know, you don't start over rendering the fur or doing things that distract from the style. It makes it seem like the style doesn't complement or fit in with everything else, but all works perfectly. back to the night scene. You almost have to imagine that this was on the original, just a regular, regular empty sky, and the colorist is the one who's bringing that in, unless Mike Perlbeck is maybe suggesting it with a circle there. But either way, incredibly effective and totally works. Get the creepy shot of the guy here. Just good acting. And again, back to that sort of charcoal outline. This one's a little easier because we get that dramatic shot, the dramatic scene in the movie. This is where I would have liked them to actually take a page to do that scene where he's first putting it on and you see Alfred's unbelievable reaction, like, oh God, he's darker, he's the boy that I saw grow up, and now he's become this creature of the night, he's become Batman. Instead of taking those 2 pages previously to show Batman vigilante fighting, this was the time to use that real estate for that reveal just as well as they pasted in the movie. So a little bit rushed here, especially when we get from the Bruce Wayne receiving the Dear John note, reacting to it with a no, going into the cave, getting the gloves, putting on the mask for what is likely the first time we see this sort of like early Batman design where he's a little bulkier. But again, just would have spent more time doing that. All right, the purple is paying off because before, color choices, now we see that the Joker is a part of this now. He's in the same spot as we saw before in the World of the Future museum display. And he's talking to Chucky Soul. Not the biggest fan of some of these designs. It has like a Dick Sprang kind of feel to it. There's something that is very roundish in the first iteration that Bruce Timm does of the Joker in the first season. After that, it starts getting a little bit more angular. But there's some things here just feel a little off at times. Like the eyes feel just a little too close. But that profile is right on point. Just larger than life. And I know the Joker is, but in times it almost feels really, really cartoonish when the style is like almost cartoonish, but not 100% cartoonish. Just stylized. Chucky Soul there. Got the dynamite explosion. Back to the that charcoal rendering here that the Phantasm has in that cloud. Like that rendering here. Just keep it simple, mysterious. Cool chase scene. Nice explosion. Good color use here. Just a color that's completely different from everything else. Makes that scene pop. Again, they have to move this quickly along. So what would have taken a few minutes in the cartoon, you're doing here in a few panels. But Perlbeck does a really good job of being very economical, just moving everything along. That scene of Batman making his way through, and then next thing you know, you reveal that it's he's put the cape and cowl on one of those wooden the workhorses to distract Gotham PD, but Andrea gets there in time to get him out. And then we get the exposition where we get to review everything. Andrea, her dad, Andrea leaving the following morning. Batman realizing that when he goes to that old picture, when he draws on top of it, would have been interesting, honestly, if they had just done all the pencil work in red, just to let you see that he was drawing on top of it instead of just the smile. But absolutely works. I also love how in some of these, Bruce Wayne's hair, it's just black. Absolutely works. And then there's moments like this where, maybe I would have put Alfred just a little bit further back so you don't have to do that little bit of line in between to show that separation. But still works. Now we're getting a bit rushed. Exposition City here. 2 pages, moving the story along. The friend there who's been exposed to the Joker gas. Batman talks to him. Again, we're moving things along quickly. And now we get to the showdown between Andrea, the Phantasm, the Joker, and Batman, all in the World of the Future display. This is where, the last, maybe last 15, 20 minutes of the movie, it's probably more like 15 minutes, is this final scene, this final showdown. And it's paced so well done that I understand, when you're on page 55, you've only got 5, 6, 7 pages to go. So you don't have a lot of real estate left. So you're kind of cramming it in towards the end. But, at the sacrifice, some of those great scenes with the turbine, that giant turbine in the movie, are broken down to just 3 panels. And, that's what you have to do. But great gesture work. Great. I mean, great, the hair, everything being moved through the air here towards the turbine. Well done. I love the fact that Perelbeck decided to keep her costume in black. No need to render. It could be leather. It could have some sort of other cloth texture. Doesn't matter. It's just black. Absolutely works. Batman throws the bat bike into the turbine, stops it. Meanwhile, she disappears. Batman, love that shot here. This would have been interesting to kind of show maybe from an even more of a worm's eye view, just to really, really highlight that sort of, that just looks exaggerated. Batman's not that tall in a city. This is meant to be like Godzilla size, but absolutely works. I would have just gone even more dramatic. And in a case like this where the Joker is taking off, something where you could see maybe this is where the worm's eye view makes sense. Batman looking up at the Joker as he's going away, not from this high angle. But again, adaptation, so you got to do what you got to do. I like how they use the statue there as kind of like this backdrop, just to establish the fact that Joker is making his way up. Again, that charcoal cloud, and yet still at the same time, it looks like when the charcoal maybe didn't work or the brush didn't work, they just went in with was probably a small brush or a micron or something to kind of finish that up. Joker in the hands of Andrea. Does a good job drawing her face. She just looks, the extra line work in her eyes, which you normally see like a very economical face. There's not a lot of lines in these faces. She has a little bit more in her eyes. So there's a little bit more life compared to, eyes like this, or in Batman's case like there, or even in that. So this one, she has a little bit less, but absolutely works, and they keep it consistent throughout the whole issue. Finally, we see kind of like that last moment. Batman in the movie is looking up as the bat signal is going up in the air. She's on the boat. She's like, "Hey, I'm alone." And then you get the nice pinup. So yeah, Batman, Mask of the Phantasm, the comic book adaptation. Great one shot. Again, feels a little hurried. This would be great if it had been 120 pages, twice as long, or even longer, where you're almost doing a page a minute. So if the movie's like an hour and 20 minutes, all right, we'll give it a page a minute. 120 pages would be just fine. You wouldn't have to get so rushed throughout this. But for something that I saw as a kid, loved it, loved every adaptation of it. So I'm proud to own this. And again, you can just see how well Bruce Timm's style from the animated series translates to comics, and how really good artists like Ty Templeton, in this case Mike Perelbeck and Rich Burkett, are able to take Bruce Timm's style and make it their own and tell a story that fits in the world of Batman animated. Thanks for checking out my review of Mask of the Phantasm, Batman the Animated Movie. Thanks for watching.